So, hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast, and welcome George to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hello, Shireen. It's so lovely to be here with you.
I'm super excited to talk to you again. I've been on your podcast. It was amazing. We talked about Chinese medicine, and I am excited for those who are watching the video version of this episode. I have the book here, Greek Secrets of Greek Mysticism, which is your new, beautiful published book. How do you feel now that you birthed your book?
Oh my God, you know the feeling. It feels so good when you bring a book into the world, but especially this one because it's so close to my heart. I'm basically writing about my ancestors and the spiritual traditions of my ancestors. So there was a lot of expectation for me writing this book, both personally, but also like representing a spiritual tradition of a culture. So I put in a lot of work, a lot of research, 7 years of like research to write this. So it just feels like I've given birth. If I could feel that feeling, I'm sure it's not bad, but as close as I can get to that.
Yeah, and I love that it's like this sacred number of 7 years. That feels also a very beautiful cycle.
Actually, that makes perfect sense. I haven't thought about it that way. And then we've been talking before we started this that in November, I'm publishing my other book called Ancient Manifestation Secrets, which is about the 7 laws of the universe, according to like the Hermetists. So I can see how the 7 year cycle is playing a part in here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's also incredible that you're writing yet another book and publishing too. Congratulations. And for those out there who are listening, and I'm actually on page 77 here too, so it's definitely synchronistic in your book. Can you share how you came into this and also how beautiful that you're connecting to your ancestry in writing this? That must be so beautiful to connect with your lineage. But just share how you came into this work. What have you been doing up until the book came out?
Yeah. So essentially, throughout my life, I studied so many different spiritual traditions. Like my path started at 15 with Feng Shui, and then I went into meditation and positive affirmations and positive psychology, healing work, working with the angels, like so many different spiritual modalities. And studying and working with like gods and goddesses from like an earth-based and new age perspective as well. But when I was it was 2017, and I was in London working a full-time job for your publisher, Hay House, and at the same time working for my own spiritual business and building this up part-time and writing my first book, Be the Guru, at the time. And you know, when you start a new business, you put in all your energy there, all your free time goes to like building up that business. So my schedule went something like this. I would wake up in the morning, go to work until 7 p.m. I would come home, and then I would start working on my own business until midnight. And then in the weekends, I would do the same thing. So 3 years of doing that, I burned myself out to the point that I woke up one morning intending to go to work, but just my body would not function because I had burned myself out that much. And at the moment, I'm like, you know what? Something needs to change. So I packed my bags and I went for a weekend trip to Glastonbury, my favorite magical town in the UK. So I spent the weekend there and I did a past life regression, searching for answers with another Hay House author, actually. And in that regression, I saw myself as a prostitute who was pregnant with one of my clients' babies. And when he found out, he stabbed me in the womb, killing the baby. And in that moment, I made this vow. I had this karmic promise to myself that I would reject my feminine energy and I would only depend on my masculine energy. And then for lifetime after lifetime, I had been abusing my masculine energy and rejecting my feminine energy. The way it manifested in this lifetime was at the age of 15, I almost took my own life because I couldn't accept the fact that I was gay, AKA feminine energy. And then there I was, years later, feeling like I had healed that part of myself. But there I was, still abusing my masculine energy by overworking myself and not giving myself any time off, and therefore rejecting my feminine energy. So I come out of the regression with tears running down my cheeks, and I'm like, I need to embrace the divine feminine. So right across the street, there was the goddess temple of Glastonbury. You can't make this up. Okay. So I rush into the temple And I go to the priestesses and I'm like, I need to connect with the divine feminine, help me do that. So they explained to me all about the Celtic goddesses that they honored at the temple. And whereas I love the Celtic goddesses, I'm like, that's not my ancestry. That's not my culture. I wonder if I can find the same within the Greek culture because I'm Greek Cypriot. So I go back to my Airbnb, I search online, and coincidentally, or more likely synchronistically, the Greek government, it was the first year, 2017, that they legalized Greek polytheism, paganism, as an official religion. So the Greek pagans, the polytheists in Athens, they were holding the first ever official priesthood training. So I booked my ticket to Athens and I booked I sent them an email, they accepted me, and I went there and I trained as in the first ever priesthood training, modern priesthood training of Greek polytheism. And then since then, I had been reading, I have been connecting with the gods and goddesses. Thankfully, I speak Greek as well, so I was reading the ancient texts too. And I had been practicing at the modern temple of Zeus that we have here in Cyprus, where we have a community of Greek polytheists, and we have a modern temple of Zeus, not an ancient one, that we do, and we follow the Greek wheel of the year. So every single month, we have our ceremonies to the gods. And 7 years later, I gathered all that experience, all that reading, all that research, and put them together in this book.
Wow, that's incredible. And how, like you said, synchronistic. Was that also when you moved back to Cyprus when the whole when you went to Glastonbury and after that? Was it?
That was a shift, yeah, because in my meditation I heard the call very clearly: quit your job, move back to Cyprus, go self-employed. So it was definitely a guided transition, and I haven't regretted it because it's helped me come back to my roots, to my own personal roots, help me connect with the energies of the land. So that's why this book feels so authentic, because it draws from my ancestry, but also from my own journey in this lifetime and over past lives as well.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, and how strong that the voice of your ancestors must have come through in all these energies. And incredible, because I actually saw a documentary about, it must have been a few years ago when it was official in Greece. I saw a documentary of rituals in Greece with this probably the same group that you're mentioning.
It is. I think you're talking about the Vice video. So Vice did a mini documentary on the Greek polytheists in Athens, and it is that organization that I trained with. Yes.
That's the one. And it was so beautiful, and it makes so much sense, and how important it was for your body to come back to your indigenous lands and to reawaken that both DNA remembrance of what your ancestors have practiced, and it's actually a form of taking back the power that was taken away through probably there's different types of colonializations, but this has been, I mean, Cyprus has a very interesting history, long history, and very rough, but I'm really interested in these. Just today I was listening to a talk about the connections between the Greek gods and goddesses and the connection to the Norse, like there was direct connections there, and the Sumerian. How have you found it in your practice, connected back to a long lineage of mythology, stories, like experiences?
So if you think about it, earth-based spiritualities and the pagan religions of the world, they all tried to understand the universe by naming different aspects of the universe, different laws and functions of the universe. So the Greek gods and goddesses, and all like pagan gods and goddesses, they are representations of the lands that define them, of universal laws and universal frequencies. For example, Aphrodite's main law is the law of form. She gives form to things. So the ancients personified the animism and the consciousness of nature so that they could understand it and work with it in a different way. So it's normal that there are correlations between the earth-based spiritualities of different traditions, because it's the same laws of the universe, just interpreted in different ways based on the lands and what's happening there. And talking about the Norse spirituality, I had my friend Richard Lister on my Instagram, and we did a live together. He teaches about Norse spirituality, and I teach about Greek spirituality. So we compared that. And I like to do this kind of conversations and host these conversations because I love comparative religion and finding out common ground and seeing how it all comes together. And I know this is a passion of yours as well. So we were talking about Aphrodite. Aphrodite is also Ishtar in the Mesopotamia, and Astarte, for example. And there are so many connections. Before the ancient Greeks, here in Cyprus, we honored the great goddess. She didn't have a name. It was just the great goddess of Cyprus, the oldest statue we found here in Cyprus. It's a cross-like statue of the female goddess, a great goddess. And it was when Greece took over that female goddess became Aphrodite. And if you want to take it to the Christian times, now she transitioned to being Mother Mary, because she has special significance for the Christians here in Cyprus. So you can see that the energy of the land wanted that feminine energy really prominent. And that's how it evolved. But I like finding these connections between the different cultures because it is the same laws in the universe interpreted in different ways.
I love that. And how, like you said, in Europe, there's a lot of, and also in Mesopotamia, a lot of symbols connected to the mother archetype, which feels so natural for people to do, because if in the beginning, when seeing life come forth from the woman, and then and also in Norse mythology, I actually found a book in London about Norse mythology, and how, yeah, if you go way back, it was like the Great Mother was like the first archetype. And then how interesting it is, like you said, because I mean, Aphrodite has so many names and forms, and then of course throughout the time things got a little bit more narrowed, and a little bit more, especially if I look at goddess Freya. She has, if you would say like a simple description, it would be like goddess of love and fertility, but she's also so much more, because she's connected to the cat, and the cat is so connected to that, like the dimensions, and there's so much more to them. So I just love how, when you were I mean, it's really hard. You have like these embodied practices, and you have shared this through your, I guess, like your ancestry and lineage coming through in the book, and it feels so amazing to have someone like you write this, because I think that the secrets and the keys are sometimes within our DNA, sometimes our soul DNA, and sometimes our physical DNA in this life can unlock like these memories, like we say, like we have Akashic records or something. But I really feel like that's, for my ancestral work, it's connected to the lands and all the elements of the lands and the spirits in nature where my ancestors have walked. It's like a remembrance, activation.
Yeah.
And you've done so much work the past few years. How did you like take all of this and start write about it? And what is it, what can people expect from reading the book?
So essentially, because I come from the personal development world, I had to blend that in with paganism, because I could have taken a purely historical perspective here and just shared facts, but that's not who I am. Like, at the end of the day, my purpose is to help people heal, to help people like have a system that they can use to deepen their spiritual connections. So that's why I have embodied practices in the book. Now, the way this book came to life was, it was partly me reading a lot of like the ancient texts and understanding the gods and goddesses from like a factual perspective, like what we do know, but also having these more experiential experience with them. I went on a temple hopping trip. I called my best friend, who is crazy like I am, just trust me with like whatever. Like I called him, I'm like, do you want to go on a temple hopping trip to Athens, like Greece? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you know how college students, they go bar hopping or club hopping. We're going to go temple hopping. We're going to rent a car, go to Greece and just visit like 15 temples. She's like, sure, let's do it. like that. So that's what we did. We started from Athens and we traveled all around to Delphi, to Olympia. And that was during COVID, by the way. We reached Olympia on the first day that COVID hit Greece, and they had closed down Olympia, so we couldn't visit Olympia. It was the only temple we couldn't go to, where the Olympic Games started, where Zeus was honored. But we went to all the other temples, and I used my dowsing rods to find a place to meditate there. We made offerings, and we sat and meditated with the gods. So in every single chapter that I have in the book about the gods, I have the story of going there with Sargis, my best friend, and getting to like meet the gods there. So that was the experiential aspect. And then what I did in the book, of course, I talk about rituals according to the ancient Greeks, how to set up altars, how to follow the Greek wheel of the year, but I also have meditations to activate the god's energy within you. I have mantras. I try to really summarize the god in a single mantra for each god to help people really understand the energies just by remembering a mantra. For example, Aphrodite's mantra that I chose is, I embrace all expressions of love. Poseidon's is, I embrace change and transformation. Hermes is, I am guided at all times. Athena's is, I turn knowledge into action. And then I also have like the virtues of the gods. This is something not talked about. Whoever writes books about the Greek gods and goddesses, I found they've presented the gods and goddesses from a mythological perspective, talking about the myths, but not the essence of the gods, presenting the gods in a reductive way, as if, okay, these are gods that they fought, they were jealous, but these are just the myths. And mythology draws from theology, but theology does not draw from mythology. The myths hold important information. They're allegories for deep spiritual meanings and lessons. So I wanted to make that clear. And also talking about the virtue system of the ancient Greeks, essentially ethical philosophy. Each god and goddess embodies certain virtues that when we practice, we can bring the energy of the gods into our lives. For example, Hera's virtues are fearless speech and pride, and what that truly means, not arrogance, but pride, being proud of who you are and embracing and standing up for yourself. Apollo's virtues are harmony and sincerity, finding harmony within balance in your life, balancing your lifestyle, harmony within your body, the way you eat, the way you present yourself in the world, being sincere in the way you treat people, and essentially practicing these kind of virtues that allow you to be a better person in the world, which was the whole point of religion in ancient Greece, was to create virtuous human beings that were good humans in the world.
That's incredible. I love the way you have structured it, because it's really easy. I mean, people might come to the book and be completely new to these archetypes, or also have read and studied them some. I haven't seen any other book that I've been drawn to, but I really love how I was on Aphrodite since I've personally gone through the year with Ishtar, the daughters of Ishtar temple, which connects to my ancestry, by the way. So we're very connected. And I just love that it has an introductory phase, and then the essence, and you get like some of the mythology and all of that, but then, as you said, also get into like more the details around it. I love that, since I studied also the Venus star points, which is connected, this aspect of the Urania aspect, the celestial. Can I read just a little bit from that?
Of course.
I love this. Aphrodite Urania is the embodiment and essence of universal love, the core life force energy that both creates and maintains life in the cosmos and the universe at large. She's present in everything and everyone, and she's both the active and binding ingredient in all of life. And we often experience Aphrodite Urania in deep meditation, when our physicality softens and we melt into the oneness that connects us with everyone and everything. We also get a glimpse of Aphrodite Urania in moments of spontaneous epiphany, spiritual enlightenment, and intense joy or love when we align with the love we're made of. I just love that. It's so beautiful and so connected to that. So we worked with the different aspects of Ishtar, which can be seen as different archetypes of the goddess, but like the cosmic aspect. But this is also so connected to the womb and the creation, this type. I just love it. And then that the book continues with, like you said, the virtues, and then also the journaling prompts, the activation mantra. And I also like the symbols like Aphrodite with the sky blue, green colors. Of course, the symbol with the shell, mirror, knuckles, and the sphere. And I like the white dove as well, because that was something that came up in a talk today that I really loved. And then of course, the rose, which is also connected to Mother Mary, and this long lineage. And then you also mentioned the offerings one can make, and that's, I mean, that feels so beautiful. And how would you, if someone wants to like take these practices, and like you said, it's all about, I just love having spiritual guided practices, because it takes time. I think it's been years and you have to navigate and see like what works for you. But how would someone start, like from this book? Would you recommend people to work with one archetype, one god or goddess at a time, or how would you do it?
So traditionally, what we do is we follow the Greek wheel of the year, which most people are familiar with, the Celtic wheel of the year, that has 8 festivals around the seasons of the earth. Now, the Greek wheel of the year does the same thing, but because Greece was at a different geographical part of the world, they understood the changing of the seasons in different ways. So instead of 8 festivals, there are 12 festivals. Now, it's important to understand that Greece had different city-states. It wasn't a unified country. And each city-state had their own calendar, their own like wheel of the year. Like here in Cyprus, for example, we celebrated Adonia in celebrations of Adonis, whereas in Athens, in Attica, they celebrated Aphrodisia in celebration of Aphrodite. The symbolism is very similar. It's very similar energies, but it's just from a different perspective. But what the Greek polytheists have done is that they've created a unified Greek wheel of the year that we can all follow. And we can also use as a way of manifestation. So there are many different ways and different levels of working with this book. At the most simpler state, you can use the journal prompts, or you can use the mantras to activate the gods or goddesses energy within you. I have a section in every chapter all about connecting with the gods out in nature, because it's an earth-based religion. And I really wanted to communicate that we don't need to do complicated rituals. We can just see the sunrise in the morning and appreciate Apollo's light shining its light on us, essentially, and see and meet the gods and goddesses out in nature. So simple practices. But for those people who do like the rituals, I have guidance around setting the altar and then following the wheel of the year, starting in January and ending in December, starting with this theogamia, which means sacred wedding between Zeus and Hera, the wedding between divine masculine and divine feminine, starting the journey in January, and then progressing with Amphisteria in February, Asclepia in March, Charisia, Thargelia, the summer solstice, Dioscuria, Irea, autumn equinox, Heraclea, Memacteria, and the winter solstice. And they all correspond to the Celtic wheel of the year as well, with just extra festivals in between. With each god, there is a god and a goddess for each festival, okay, to create balance between the masculine and the feminine. And you also have the virtues of these gods that are celebrated each month. So it's about connecting essentially with the cycle of the earth through the year, month after month, by working with the gods and goddesses. So that's the most complex way of working with them, if someone wants to do it and really dedicate their path to that. And also, because we love new moon and full moon rituals for manifestation, the ancient Greeks had a very special relationship with the moon. They had lunar months. They followed a lunar calendar. And the first day of a new moon was defined by Plutarch as the holiest of days. It was the holiest of days. They couldn't hold any governmental meetings. They would just focus on setting intentions, clearing the house's altars, and just really setting it up. And then, like we celebrate new moon and full moon, they almost celebrated every single day of the lunar cycle. Almost. They had a different god dedicated to each day. So they had a really close connection with the moon. But what I've done in the book is I've created a new moon ritual and a full moon ritual celebrating the goddesses of the moon, Selene, Artemis, Hecate, while at the same time setting new moon intentions and then manifesting them during the full moon.
I love that it's also so it's connecting with earthly and the cosmic energies, and it's really a great way to practice, to follow the cycles of the year and the seasons, and being connected to also the moon cycles, which is also, I mean, it happens every second week, so it does help us to have, because I think that many people have a hard time just getting into a regular practice. I feel like that's, for me, the most tough thing to get, because there's so much in life that can get us out, but it's the perfect balancing to everything else in life. So I just love that. And I actually want to share something, and you've written about Zeus. So I've visited, my first visit to Greece was to Delphi, actually, which was incredible because I was 16 and we went with school, but we went to Athens and then we went up to Delphi. We were studying the history of Greece. And I had like a major activation up there as a 16-year-old. I started like having a nosebleed because I was thinking maybe it's because of the altitude. But now, many years after, I was thinking that all of these, it was some type of activation up there, and I felt it already back then. And then, yeah, I visited islands and things. I think one island in Greece, but I went to Athens and out to the East Coast a couple of years ago. And that was my first encounter with Zeus, because we went and ended up in a place where there's actually had, unfortunately, been these fires. I
know, yes. A few years ago, there were the fires and everything was burnt. Yes.
We ended up there for some reason. I don't know if there was a purpose with me going there. It was really, it was after the fires. But I woke up one night and I thought I was gonna die, because we were right on the sea in a hotel, and I have never heard louder thunders in my life. I thought our room would explode, and I had this really strong understanding for the elements and why people would connect with this energy, because I had never experienced it in Sweden like this powerfully. So that was intense. It was an intense couple of days there.
We have strong thunderstorms in Cyprus, and when it thunders, it's really scary. Many times I woke up from like really loud thunders. So again, you can see the connection with Zeus there. And did you know that thunder was actually considered as a god in ancient Greece? So when you read the Orphic hymns, now the Orphic hymns are the hymns I include in the book as well. They're ancient hymns, ancient Greek hymns that were religious. And we have many of them. And I included all 12 and a few more. But I also include the hymn to Zeus, the thunder. So there was a version of Zeus that was the thunder, and people prayed to that energy. And what is that energy? Let's talk about it, because it's a really important thing. So that now that you've talked about it, so God thunder, okay, Zeus the thunder. It's basically, it's a really bad analogy, but it's powerful. It's a divine semen that impregnates the earth. It's this life force energy, this divine life force energy that impregnates the earth, allowing everything to grow and to expand, both energetically, but also like from a physical perspective. so we can work with the energy of the thunder energetically to power our manifestation, to power our desires. One of my favorite ways to clearing my energy every morning when I do my spiritual practice is I call upon the thunder, the energy of thunder, Zeus, the thunder, to flow this divine thunder through my body, and imagine this electricity of the thunder flowing through my body and instantly clearing my aura and my energy and my chakras and connecting me to that life force energy. So it clears, at the same time it empowers, it frees, it protects. It's just so powerful. So it's like this divine semen coming in to create new life.
That's amazing. And I never thought about like, and I guess that the thunder is of the fire element, isn't it? But
It
it's also
is.
very special because we never think about thunder as, but it's definitely like a spirit in itself. It feels like
Yes.
so
Yes. And so much were the Greeks connected to the weather and the weather conditions because they're so volatile in like in the Mediterranean that when it would rain, they wouldn't say it's raining. They would say Zeus is raining. So you can see that the close relationship they had with the elements. Zeus is raining. They saw the sky as Zeus.
Yeah. And I guess like Aphrodite would be connected to the earth element, or?
So Aphrodite, it's interesting. So you talked about Urania, Aphrodite, Urania, Urania, the celestial Aphrodite. All the gods and goddesses, they have different epithets, these different adjectives that describe their versions, their characteristics. So in the Aphrodite chapter, I talk about the four Aphrodites, four of my favorite kind of epithets. Urania is one of them. I talk about Pytho. I talked about Pandemos, which means belonging to everybody, to all people. And basically, usually in the spiritual community, and this is an influence of Christianity particularly, when we think of love, we think about divine love, the state of oneness, what Aphrodite, Urania is all about, okay? However, when I was working with Aphrodite, because according to the myth, she was born here in Cyprus, the Aphrodite is rock, that's like the whole myth, so we have a strong connection to that energy. So I did a lot of work with Aphrodite here at the ancient temples here. At the time when I was dealing with like sexuality issues, body acceptance issues, etc. And she helped me understand that really what Aphrodite is, she is sacred sex. She's the energy of mingling. She's the law of form. She's seemingly opposing energies coming together to create something new. She's not just this divine love of oneness. She's sexual love. She's sensual love. She's flirtatious, playful love. She's self-love. She's all of that. Here in Cyprus, there is evidence that women practice sacred prostitution in honor of Aphrodite, whereas they would go to the temple and they would offer their virginity to strangers as a way of gifting that to Aphrodite. So, and that was honored. That was seen as an offering. During the Aphrodisia festival, they would bake bread in the shape of a phallus, and they would give that to people as a symbolism of like fertility, for example. So you can see how people had a very different relationship to what love is. That's why her virtue, Aphrodite's virtue, is not love, it's friendship, because friendship was how Greeks understood love. Seeing everyone as a friend and treating everyone as a friend and having that love that you have towards yourself with everybody else.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And how beautiful also when I'm thinking about this, and we're talking about the earthly, it's so connected also. I feel like that's like really Shakti energy, and also thinking about the aspects of Venus in astrology as well. It's so connected because it is about that earthly, physical, like the senses, the embodiment. So it's not just like up there, it's like being connected to one's body. And
yeah,
it's beautiful. And how, I'm just curious about.
Can I share something about Aphrodite's element? Because
Yeah.
I feel that I tried that as well, to assign an element to the gods, and I couldn't, because it's not so black and white in the Greek perspective. So the way that I think about Aphrodite, and that's like her myth, her birth myth, she was born in the water from the foams of the water. She stepped on land and then she ascended to the heavens. So does that make her a water goddess, an earth goddess, or an ether goddess? It's everything. It's depending on which aspect of her you are working with. Poseidon, for example. Oh, I hear people thinking that's simple. Hey, he's the god of water. He's the god of like the oceans. Not really, not exactly. He's the god of liquid forms, okay? And he's been described as an earth shaker. Why? Because he's also the god of earthquakes. And his main symbol is a horse. That doesn't have to do with the sea, it has to do with the land. So how does that make sense? And that's why he's the god of transformation and change, because that's what earthquakes bring. That's what the earth brings, transformation and change. So if you think about it, he's the god of all liquid forms, both spiritual liquids, meaning our soul and the ethers, okay? And also like physical liquids. So physical liquids is not just the ocean, it's not just water, it's also the lava underneath the earth that moves the plate tectonics, creating earthquakes. So there's a connection with the element of liquid, but also the earth. Zeus, a sky god, but also creating thunders, fire. So could you say he's an air god? Not really. Hera, for example, is as closer as we can get to like a single element air, because she rules the sphere of the lived experience of humans on Earth. So from the surface of the Earth until the top part of the atmosphere where people can go. And therefore, this part, the livable part of the Earth, that's governed by Hera. Hence why she's a goddess of marriage and family and children, earthly life. So it's interesting how we can work with Aphrodite, for example, as an earth goddess, but also as a water goddess, but also as a fire goddess, but also as a spirit goddess, etc.
I love that. Yeah, so that's a kind of like when we talk in Chinese medicine about the elements, and like you can have an organ that has a yin or yang, but it's always within each other. So it's like everything has, even the yang has yin within. It's like, oh, it's going back and forth, and it's that balance. And I think the elements are also showing that balance. If it's only one thing, then you don't have that other aspect. Or like you said, when you celebrate the different points or sacred points, you have the divine feminine and masculine to balance, which I think it's, since we are in a world of imbalance, it's hard because we usually tend to go one way. So it's really interesting that you mentioned this, and especially since in astrology we usually connect, but I mean Venus is connected with the airy energy of Libra and also the earthly, so it can be both, like going
Yeah.
up. Yeah, it's balancing each other out. And yeah, I'm really excited about this book. There are a lot of things that I would love to learn more about, and I think that the book will definitely give more. What is something else from the book that you feel is really important for people to know?
So at the end of the book, while I was writing the epilogue, I found myself in an interesting situation. I was trying to finish the book, while at the same time I was rehearsing for a Greek production of Mamma Mia that I was starring in, and I was rehearsing for drama school exams, and I was trying to have a life. I was launching my online course. I was doing so many things, and there I was giving people advice like have 3 rituals to the gods every month: a new moon ritual, a full moon ritual, and then the festival ritual of like the Greek wheel of the year. And I was telling people to do that, and I hadn't done a single ritual in over 3 months. And I'm like, I'm such an imposter, like writing these and not doing the work right now. So in my frustration, I go back to the notes that I had been taking in 2017 when I went to Athens to train for this. And I went back to my notes and I was reading through them. And I saw a note that I've taken from my teacher that said, you don't need to search to find the gods outside of you, because that assumes that the gods are more powerful than you. You are already in the ocean of the gods and you're swimming in it. And that hit home for me. So in that moment, I closed my eyes, I placed one hand on my heart, and I said to myself, wake up. And my intention was, wake up your inner divinity, wake up your understanding that you are one with the gods, that you don't need all these complicated rituals to connect with the gods, because the gods are not outside of us. We are part of the gods. The gods' light has already come. The gods' grace has already been given. It's just a matter of remembering that. And we can remember this like that instantly by telling ourselves, wake up, and see what wakes up within us. So if I could leave people with a single practice after sharing so many rituals and practices, etc., is if you won't skip everything and just wake up to the inner divinity within you and realize that you are part of the gods.
I love that. I think like most spiritual practices lead to that. And these, I see these mythologies and stories, and who knows, like how did these archetypes come up? Is it within our collective consciousness? Is it something we're remembering? Because I think that in an easy way, since also in yoga we have that practice of when you personify the divine, it's actually sometimes easier to connect with, right? Than this all encompassing divine love source. It's so big. So when you go into, that's why you can see that sometimes it's in a form of, you see it as a parent, or you see it as a child, or you see it as a lover. Like it's a relationship that you are, a personal relationship. It's not outsourced anywhere to anyone else. It's you and that divine remembrance. And then since I have studied religious psychology, it's really interesting how these stories can activate things for us that do help us to either empower ourselves or to live into the role, so that we can shift out of something maybe we're stuck in or we're coping with, and we can find support in the stories. And I mean, it's just a mindfulness practice to be aware of where we are in the season, or being in nature, because we are so stuck in a box sometimes, and most of us work in front of a computer, and we're just living these everyday, we're like disconnected. And I think that having this as a tool can help, and then that can spark something else, and it can spark your own practices. But I think that we also embody the different archetypes in different parts of life, and they serve us differently. So it's really good to have that openness to understand. And then, like you said, it's so interesting to see the connections to other stories and goddesses and gods, and just seeing how everything is so connected. I think that my religious studies have really helped me to see how everything is so connected, and we all do stem from we have been with nature, we communed with nature before, and now we see it as a separation from us, but we're not. And like you said, this remembrance of we have been in this physical state in oneness in the womb. That's when we were encompassed, like that's the first remembrance in this life, but then we forget that connection. So I just love this. I can definitely recommend everyone Secrets of Greek Mysticism, a modern guide to daily practice with the Greek gods and goddesses. I just love the illustration also on the book. It's beautiful.
Yes, it's by a wonderful artist, and I was so grateful to have included that on the book.
And I see the lion there as well, which is so like such a powerful symbol. And for me, just the feline, it's
Yeah, and it made sense for me because I'm a Leo as well. So like I when I saw that, I'm like, this is perfect because it's a part of me as well on the cover.
I love it. And where can people find the book?
So you can find the book. You can go to greekmysticism.com, and when you get the book, you also get a free workshop with me, all about finding and all about meeting your Greek god or goddess guardian. And then you can find it obviously on Amazon. and wherever books are sold. And you can connect with me on Instagram at George Lizos. I would love to hear how your experience was while reading the book.
Lovely. And I will share all the links in the show notes. And if anyone has questions to George or me, let us know. I would love to hear more about all the listeners' experiences with this and if anything has come up from this episode. And I want to thank you so much for creating this book and just being here and sharing your wisdom. You're amazing. And everyone check out the podcast, your podcast as well. I can link to George's podcast as well. It's amazing. So
Thank you so much, Shireen. I am so grateful. Thank you so much. I always love chatting.
Thank you.